I know that the Marnie and Steven rival battle decks just came out, and depending on how supply is in your area, you may not have been able to get them just yet. At the time of this recording, I really want the Marnie one because the Grimmsnarl deck is one of my favorites in the current format, but in my neck of the woods, it's just sold out. But regardless of that, I do want to bring up the question, will we get more of these rival battle decks? And not just in more supply. Yes, I really hope that we can get more Marnie and Steven decks out in the wild, but I want to know and want to have a discussion about, are we going to get more of these? Like different archetypes and stuff? I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about the possibility of getting more rival battle decks. These decks came out at the tail end of May, and one of the weird things about these is that they were directly based on some pre-constructed decks in Japan. Now, Japan has a completely different market and scene for pre-constructed decks over there, and outside of Japan, they kind of do their own things with decks. This is the first time where we saw a Japanese equivalent get pretty much directly ported outside of Japan. Yes, these aren't the exact same decks. Some of the cards did change from Japan to outside of Japan, but the idea of taking this general archetype in a pre-constructed deck in Japan and then bringing it outside of Japan is kind of unprecedented. So this was a very cool move on Pokemon's part to bring these decks outside of Japan because I think they're both very cool. However, we cannot ignore the elephant in the room. The reason we got Marnie and Steven rival battle decks is because we ended up not getting deluxe battle decks in this time frame where we normally would get deluxe battle decks. They are more or less equivalent products, and rival battle decks took out the deluxe battle decks this time around. However, we are, based on past precedent, we would normally expect a level 2 drop somewhere between August and September, where Pokemon would drop 2 deluxe battle decks in that slot. And I guess the question I want to ask is, are we going to get more rival battle decks in that spot, or are we going to go back to the whole deluxe battle deck thing? If I was Big Pikachu, I would release more rival battle decks. I think that Pokemon really hit a home run here and have made a pre-constructed deck that is desirable for both players, new players, experienced players, as well as collectors. Having the illustration rare promo being exclusive to these decks make them desirable products for collectors, and then for players, both Marnie and Steven are pretty decent archetypes. Okay, Steven, the Metagross hasn't shaken out to be a particularly competitive archetype, but just playing the deck as is against other level 2 decks, I think Steven's Metagross deck stomps out all of the other deluxe decks that aren't the Marnie's Grimmsnarl. And right now, the Marnie's Grimmsnarl deck with upgrades is one of the best decks in the game right now. So to be able to just get one box as a starting point for that top tier deck is fantastic. So I think any way you slice it, I think these rival battle decks are just a much better value proposition than anything Pokemon has shown they would put in a deluxe battle deck. On top of that, Pokemon already has a ton of potential archetypes they can use in this format, because between Journey Together and Destined Rivals, we have a lot of great combos of Trainers EX Pokemon alongside illustration rares that would make for great collector decks and great player decks. One of the first to come to mind is N, and a combination of N Zoroark alongside N's Reshiram would be amazing. And Zoroark, at least in my neck of the woods, is one of the more expensive EXs to get, so having this in a pre-constructed package would be awesome and make it a lot cheaper to build a Zoroark deck. Having this as a foundation is great. The Reshiram is it's a playable card in the sense that Zoroark does copy its attack from time to time. The art on this one's absolutely stunning, and we are starting to see N Zoroark finally find its footing in the competitive meta. So to be able to get a Zoroark rival battle deck as a starting point that players can upgrade, while also getting that super collectible Reshiram. Okay, so maybe the Reshiram might not be as collectible because it was also a box topper in Journey Together booster boxes, but regardless, getting this as a pre-constructed deck would be incredible. How about Mewtwo EX? Now, this archetype has not quite proven itself just yet. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, maybe when more cards come out, Mewtwo will show itself as an absolute unit. But I don't think that stops it from being a great candidate for a rival battle deck. Mewtwo is one of the most marketable Pokemon in the Pokemon TCG. People love Mewtwo and would buy things with Mewtwo on it, and I do think that Mewtwo as an attacker has a lot of potential, and we can pair this with the Spidops illustration rare. I love this art with the black and the green, that high contrast, and Spidops is an incredibly playable Pokemon in Destined Rivals as that energy acceleration for Mewtwo EX. I would absolutely pick up a rival battle deck with this combo. Lily is another great trainer that can be used for a deck, though maybe not in the same way as the Zoroark and the Mewtwo. Clefairy by itself, or even just Lily as its own deck idea, has not really come to fruition. No one's playing Lily's Rabombi at all, but it is a stunning illustration rare, and I would love to have a version of that in my collection. However, Lily's Clefairy is an incredibly playable Pokemon that you can tech into a whole bunch of different decks, not just Lily's decks. And you actually can play Lily's Clefairy as the focal point of its own offense. You get a couple Crispins, maybe you play it with Xatu for some energy acceleration as well. You throw some Lily's Clefairies on there, and then you've got a really simple attacker that can hit for a lot of damage while also dropping only one prize as a 2-prizer. And maybe it's not the most relevant archetype in and of itself, but I think it's perfect for a rival battle deck where you're getting a bunch of trainers. I think this would play pretty decently as its own archetype, and then you can upgrade it whether you slap the Lily's Clefairy into a Gardevoir deck or some other deck. I think that this would totally work in the context of a rival battle deck format. This one might be a little bit of a reach in the sense that Ho-Oh EX hasn't seen much play, but the Typhlosion absolutely has. The Ethan's Typhlosion as a deck archetype has been one of, it's probably the best single prize deck that we have in our current competitive format. And then Ethan is a marketable trainer as sort of your main character of Gold and Silver, and then Typhlosion's a popular Pokemon as well. Maybe the Ho-Oh is a little underwhelming, but you do need 2 Ho-Oh EXs in this box in order to help sell the package. But I do think this would totally work as a rival battle deck as well. Another great archetype for this type of deck is Garchomp EX, with Cynthia, an incredibly popular trainer, Garchomp being an incredibly popular Pokemon, and then we have Roserade as the illustration rare, which helps boosts Garchomp's damage. This is an archetype that has the potential to have upwards of 400 HP and swing for over 300 damage, and starting at only 260 damage for only 2 energy. There is a lot to like with Garchomp EX, even if it hasn't quite proven itself to be a beast in the competitive meta. It does seem like a highly playable deck, and as that sort of level 2 archetype, I think that Cynthia's Garchomp makes perfect sense at this level of deck, and I would absolutely pick this up. It seems decently playable, put in some upgrades, and yeah, this could be a really fun rogue deck with the potential of possibly cracking into the upper tiers at some point. I'm bullish on Hops Zacian. I think this card is good and will be better at some point, to the point I've already bought my playset of Hops Zacians, but I would definitely give this deck a look. You can play it a bunch of different ways, whether you're focusing on that Brave Slash attack and you throw some Matangs in there for energy acceleration, or partner with Archaludon for energy acceleration, or you just focus on the Insta Strike attack with that one colorless energy and you spread damage counters with stuff like Monkey Dory or Iron Valiant. Lots of different ways of playing Hops Zacian EX, and I feel like it's only a matter of time before it really finds its footing in the competitive meta. On top of that, this is one of the most popular legendary Pokemon that would sell boxes and sell decks, and then you can pair it with the illustration rare Wooloo, where that can evolve up to the Dubwool that can gust an opposing bench Pokemon into the active. I think that a rival battle deck of Zacian would be pretty playable and sell really well too. I will admit, Iono's archetype is not nearly as playable as some of the ones we have talked about so far. I'm actually kind of disappointed in that, but I do think that an Iono deck would sell pretty well. Iono's an incredibly popular Pokemon, and you're also getting to put the Iono's Kilowattrel illustration rare in that box too, which is one of my favorite arts from Journey Together. So maybe not the most playable, but I do think this would sell pretty well, and it would play okay. I guess this would be on the lower end of power for a level 2 deck, but I do think that something like Iono's Belly Bolt would work fine in a level 2 rival battle deck. I didn't even cover all of the potential options here. You probably could do an Arven deck if you really wanted to, though I don't think that archetype is particularly strong. Maybe some sort of Team Rocket deck with Persian or Crobat could be in the mix as well. But I think just based on the ones that I've shown, I think there's a ton of great opportunities to repackage some of those as rival battle decks. And again, as much as I love Pokemon and Pokemon Company International, I have not been a fan of the deluxe battle decks up until now, but I really love this rival battle deck line, and I think it would be a shame if they just stopped with the two that we got in the Marnie and Steven. And I know Marty and Steven are a little bit of an edge case because Japan made those cards specifically to go in pre-constructed decks, and if they were to make more of them, unless we see some other pre-constructed decks based on the trainers Pokemon come out in Japan, they would have to take the extra effort to build their own lists, which they have done in the past, and they did even modify the Marnie and Steven decks for players outside of Japan. So around in the next couple of months, when we get to the fall season, I really hope we're getting more rival battle decks instead of deluxe battle decks. What do you think? Would you prefer, I'm gonna guess you'd prefer the rival battle deck format, but I don't know, maybe you really like the deluxe battle deck format and would prefer that instead of all of this trainer specific stuff. Regardless of where you stand, let me know in the comments, and also let me know which of the archetypes would you want to see most in a rival battle deck format. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at InThirdPerson. You can find me on Twitch at InThirdPerson, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, InThirdPerson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.